Hey everybody, John Malanka with United Patients Group. Be informed and be well. This segment is brought to you by Aspen Green. Aspen Green is just a handful of USDA certified organic hemp and CBD brands, and all of its hemp is grown from the perfect topography and climate found in Colorado. Check out why purity matters at aspengreen.com and follow them on social channels at Aspen Green CBD. Use promo code UPGCBD for 20% off. Welcome back, everybody. This is John Malanka with United Patients Group. Be informed and be well. Today's special guest, Dr. Jake Felice. We've worked together on a few other podcasts, and so welcome back, Jake. How are you doing?
I'm great, John. It's wonderful to be here with you again.
Love the brick house behind you. It's the power of technology that we're able to put whatever we want behind us. But my hair would be like this, and you'd see, I'd disappear for a second. So glad to have you on. Let's talk about the endocannabinoid system. And I have this, I know a lot of people are hearing about it. And so let me just give a little intro about it. And so, for our audience, did you know that there are 12 different systems in your body that each play an important role? Some you may be very familiar with and others not so much. So you're probably familiar with the nervous system, the muscular system, the reproductive system, but have you ever heard of our endocannabinoid system? As mentioned, I have Jake Felice, Dr. Jake Felice, and we're going to talk about the endocannabinoid system. Jake's background, he's a naturopath, which I'm a big fan of, and I shared with many of you on the show before. That's who my doctors are naturopaths, and Corinne and I, been with the naturopath doctor for the last 10 years. And so I love your mindset when it comes to medicine. But you're a cannabis educator, clinician, whose vision is to advance the science and practical application of medical cannabis for medical and recreational markets around the world. Jake provides world-class hemp and cannabis education experiences by speaking authentically about hemp and cannabis. He is the founder of Cannabis Matrix Consulting and advises dietary supplement and cannabis companies regarding optimal product development. And so welcome back, Jake. How are you doing?
It's just really wonderful to be here talking about one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm good, John. Thanks.
Well, let's get on it. I mean, it's not discussed maybe now, but it had not been discussed in medical schools. And so a lot of the medical professionals I have on, I always ask is, was it discussed in medical school when you were there? And what's your answer to that one?
To my greatest recollection, it was not. Granted, I was in medical school. I graduated in 2003 from Bastyr University. It may have been mentioned one or two times, but it is not certainly something that stuck with me, nor was it presented as something that is profound as we now know it to be, meaning it's the number one receptor system in our nervous system, in the human nervous system. And at any one given point in time, it is massively controlling a huge amount of biologic information across all of the systems that you just talked about. And I also like to throw in one more that's not in a lot of the recent textbooks, but if you Google that, that is the connective tissue system or interstitial system, which is now considered to be a new organ system largely responsible for inflammatory processes, immune processes that are happening in the body. We can talk about that as well.
Good. So like you, I'm a big storyteller. And so, we've had some great conversations. You're a great storyteller to get the visual of it going from point A to point B and what it does. And you had I hope you can use that same analogy of when you're talking about how Wi-Fi systems work out.
Sure. Well, I've got a virtual brick wall behind me, not a real one, but you can use that as a visual and think of the bricks as the cells. So I'll throw it right back at the audience. What's holding this virtual wall together? Is it the bricks? And I'll keep it simple. The answer is no. It's the mortar that is holding the bricks together. That's akin to the connective tissue. In our blood, plasma is considered connective tissue. If the bricks are the cells, the mortar is the connective tissue, it forms this vast network that literally interconnects all of the cells in our body and provides a medium of communication between different cells. It's the vast majority of cell communication is happening in the interstitial space. For example, the synapse between our brain cells is connective tissue space. And it's where the vast majority of the immune and inflammatory processes occur. And what's really exciting about the endocannabinoid system is that we have an ability to influence this system that literally holds us together and keeps our biologic communication functioning optimally. So in a sense, we can do some inner engineering. This system responds very well to cannabis, responds very well to dietary factors such as healthy fats that are in salmon, cold water fish, omega-3, as you probably heard of, responds fantastically to acupuncture, chiropractic manipulation. There's even a study about women singing. When we sing, it makes us feel good, does it not? At least when nobody's listening and I'm singing, it makes me feel really good. So these things.
Isn't that the truth? My brother's a musician, and I've had old girlfriends say, "You sound great, but you don't sound like your brother." I'm like, well, to me, I sound like I'm my brother. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. So these things that typically make us feel good have a positive influence on this connective tissue and endocannabinoid system. And one of the most exciting things about it for me has been the study of the plants and how they can positively impact us. That means that it gives us an ability to help support the systems that are literally holding us together.
It's a great point. And the endocannabinoid, it's a recent system that had been discovered. And of course, we've had it forever, but it's recently discovered. And they used to say it was only mammals that have it with a vertebrate. And now they're saying jellyfish. Are you hearing that?
Animals, yes. Primitive organisms such as jellyfish, all animals except for insects that we know of have this system. It is widespread throughout biology. And one of the stories is how life 600 million years ago, there was water all over the planet. The primordial ocean, no land had popped up yet. Mount Everest was not even on the radar. So, and all cells were single-celled organisms. And yet here we are, me and you talking, we have bodies, we have brains, and biologically, the programs, the software programs that biology uses to make and manufacture itself occurred evolutionarily for various reasons. Bodies have certain advantages that single cells don't. For example, we have some resilience against our environment. You can turn down the heat in here, it can cool off, and we can produce our own heat. So having a body allows us some degree of resilience against the universe, which is a very hostile place, or can be a very hostile place to life. So in order for cells to form bodies, they had to develop a way to communicate with each other. How do cells talk to each other? And that's when the first tissue developed, which is connective tissue, the very first evolutionary tissue. Also, a body needs a blueprint on how to build itself. So how does a stem cell turn into a neuron, for example? There's an elaborate dance, biochemical dance that goes on that determines how stem cells will grow and mature into the different types of cells that we have. Also, when you have a body, you need to have an alert mechanism that says, hey, we have an injury down on toe number 5, injury down on toe number 5, let's mobilize the resources. And I say that tongue in cheek, but literally repair processes of the body are necessary for our survival, and those programs developed evolutionarily, and the endocannabinoid system is involved in all of that. And so not only is there a necessity to identify the problem, but then to gather the biologic resources necessary to repair the organism. And the endocannabinoid system does all of these things. And for the first time in a long time in medicine, we now have a system that not only, it's called a homeostatic system. You can Google homeostasis, how the body maintains health and holds itself together. That's literally what this system does, and it has been in the design process for 600 million years. So there's been a lot of time for some very sophisticated development with,
and you mentioned, and you mentioned it's holding it all together, but it's also bringing the body back to balance. And
that's correct. Yes. So when the system detects an imbalance, it immediately acts on whatever level that may be. So these cannabinoid receptors that we have are not behaving like classic receptor systems that we typically think of in terms of biochemistry or pharmacology, because these receptors, think of a catcher's mitt on the outside of a cell. A receptor is something that literally receives information. It receives a biologic molecule that then creates a downstream effect in the physiology. These mechanisms that we have can be positively influenced by cannabis, CBD, whole plant cannabis, as well as the dietary and lifestyle features. So,
I always do the Cliff Note version of this. The endocannabinoid system, what is it craving? It's craving cannabinoids to bring it back to balance. But there's also something called endocannabinoid deficiency, not having enough cannabinoids. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So one of the ways to think about this system is that it's a biologic network. I call it the internet of the body, but it is an information processing network that is hardwired. You and I have a pretty good connection, internet connection today. As far as I can tell, no fuzziness, nothing's cutting in and out. Biologically, when we're healthy, we have a good functioning internet, but all of a sudden, if something goes awry, that communication system can be disrupted, and it is like the internet going slow. Yeah. All of a sudden you can't upload videos or download videos. So if you are a single cell or a tissue or even an organ system, and you are experiencing challenges to the balance of your health and physiology, a disruption of this communication system can be really bad, because it can, for example, prevent the immune system from talking with the nervous system, because there's too much static in the communication network, in the endocannabinoid system. So we call that, when the internet is down or not working well in the body, we call that endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome, because the deficiency is in the endocannabinoid system. And how does that present? Well, if you disrupt a communication system, you disrupt all of the systems of physiology that you just talked about. And so, for example, if the nervous system is unable to communicate with the immune system over time, problems can develop.
So right now, especially right now, what we're all going through, this pandemic, not only here in the U.S., but globally, immune systems are down. They're not getting outside. People aren't getting outside and having interaction with friends and family, which can bring up immune system of being happy and energized, a hug, but also getting out and going out for a run or a ride. Sometimes the immune system is down. And so can you share how this endocannabinoid system helps our immune system bring it back? Sure. Everything's connected. Sure. I love your internet description as well.
Excellent. Well, if we define stress as any biologic demand on the physiology for change, the body has to manage change, and to a degree we can call that stress. There are lots of human studies now showing correlations between my stress levels or anyone's stress levels and the levels of the endocannabinoid molecules in the body, so that we know that when the body is stressed, in an ideal situation, this system becomes activated. In a less than ideal situation, because the communication's not happening, the reactivity may not be as robust as is ideal. So there are studies, for example, self-reported stress in humans correlate to endocannabinoid levels, When we stress humans out, the cortisol level raise, and we know that the ECS does not function as well. The corollary that I think is important that you mentioned is we all have so much stress going on in our life. This system gives us a way that we can at least partially manage our stress, our anxiety. Folks are having sleepless nights. It can help with that. And it gives us also a tool to address some of the, what I'll say, mild to moderate pain issues that can happen if you're a weekend warrior going out and overdoing it on the weekends. It gives us a really good way to help the body balance itself. And it does this primarily through enhancing the communication processes between our cells.
So, and this affects all of us at all age levels. You being
It does. However, as we age, the robustness of the endocannabinoid system becomes compromised, as so many things do. So I think that for issues of aging, this might also be a very important system, just in terms of helping us maintain a good, healthy life for as many years as we can.
Do you recommend any type of cannabis? When I say any type of cannabis, some states have all the cannabinoids. Some are I don't say forced. Force is not the right word, but laws are not allowing them to have access. And so maybe CBD, which we're seeing pop up everywhere nowadays, is the only cannabinoid that they have access to. Do you recommend this? That everyone should take this as a daily vitamin, a daily supplement?
I personally don't see a need for it for the vast majority of people to be on a daily. However, to manage the ups and downs of stress, absolutely. If you haven't been sleeping in a while, it can help improve restful sleep. Personal story, my mom had been having trouble sleeping. She is a retired nurse, somewhat skeptical. Her husband had passed several years ago, and she's having sleepless nights. First night with CBD, she woke up and said, "That was the best sleep I've had since my husband died." So I think that the thing that folks need to realize is you may say, for example, be taking it for one thing, but it can also benefit you in other areas. So for example, somebody with a sore shoulder may be taking it for the pain, but there may be some residual benefits such as helping with their sleep, for example, or helping with anxiety. Folks with cancer, I never say that cannabis can cure cancer, but it certainly, I think we can make the claims based on scientific literature now that it helps alleviate some of the symptoms, some of the pain, helps with nausea, vomiting. The topical products can be very good for the radiation burns from radiation treatment. So it gives folks a lot of tools, but also on the plus side, it can help maintain health of other good functioning systems along with a concomitant disease process. So it may or may not be helpful for the bone pain and cancer. A lot of the times it is, thankfully, but not always. But it could certainly have other beneficial effects for people that are unintended. One of them being sleep. And you had mentioned products. I feel that there's a lot of misinformation about CBD. CBD is the name of a molecule, but it works better when it comes with the whole entire plant. So all of these molecules work together so that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It's called botanical synergy. If you read in the literature, you'll see not a lot on the mechanisms of synergy, but I will be coming out with a paper on this. Synergy, the molecules can do a few things. One, they can make the medicine have better positive effects. We know this from CBD studies. For example, CBD for pain tends to work better when there's a little bit of THC or other terpene molecules together. It can reduce negative side effects such as the short-term memory loss that's associated with THC. Now, a lot of people don't want to take THC, but there are other cannabinoids such as CBG or CBN, which can be very good for sleep. So utilizing the whole plant, I think, is a really good strategy. And the studies are just really pretty clear that the whole plant is outperforming the single molecule across a large number of studies now.
Yeah. You mentioned products, and we can go down a whole other discussion on products. I always recommend make sure your products are tested. When I say tested, not you, the consumer, it's you, the consumer, purchasing from that location. They should have test results. I don't have any boxes near me, but nowadays the new product lines have a QR code, which you can scan.
You scan it and it will take you there. Yep, that's a great tip.
Yeah.
Laboratory analysis is good. And what is the best, in my opinion, is third-party independently tested as well. So not only is a good company doing internal tests, they are also sending it out to a contracted lab for publishing purposes. And then they will get a third opinion. And when all of those line up, we have a much better indication that there is a good product. And there have been study after study out now. What is on your label may not even actually be what's in the bottle. As an industry, we have to have a commitment to quality. And you're absolutely right, John. Thorough and good testing, not just for THC and CBD levels, but for other cannabinoids and terpenes as well, plus third-party independent tests, so that nobody can say, oh, this lab has a financial interest in kind of popping or propping those numbers up. A third-party test is beneficial that way.
When Corinne and I started United Patients Group back in 2011, we had a bunch of companies that said, let's advertise. And there was a very well-known company that made it to the Times top influential cannabis companies. And we received their product, and their product, the labeling, one said nutritional value 127%. And I asked them, I said, how do you get 127%? And they laughed. They said, well, no one will notice. And I said, well, we do, and our name, and people come to us and say, who do you recommend? And they said, well, we can't advertise you. And I said, then don't advertise, and so that's the type of thing that scares me about this industry. And so you are so correct. And don't always believe what's on and I would say, judge a book by its cover. We all do it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've actually gone into a bookstore and said, oh, that's a beautiful book cover. If you want to take it like that. And I purchased that book. You see it when wine labels, you see it in everything.
Pretty packaging, fancy labels.
Restaurant, I mean, the work, but so make sure what's on that label is on the inside. And if they do not have, and I sound like a broken record probably to a lot of our followers who've been following us for a while, if they don't have a phone number or an email or test results, which happens on a lot of these companies, go find another product, because there are thousands.
You don't know what you're paying for. If you don't know what's in it, you can't know what you're paying for.
Yeah. So. The product thing, I was actually, before I went into that side with the product, I was originally thinking about products for bringing the body back to homeostasis for the endocannabinoid system. Mm-hmm. Is there certain things that smoking inhalation versus tinctures versus topicals? I know you mentioned about your mom and sleep. I think it's wonderful when Corinne's folks live in a retirement community, and as people pass on, as you and I have both experienced in life. But we've had the residents that have contacted, you know what? You allowed me to get out of my room or my apartment or my house to come back and see my friends again, because I've sleep. My depression has helped me because of my loved ones passed, and they would share these stories. And, after living it with Corinne passing, my sleep was off. I mean, when you talked about your mom losing her husband, shoot, I'd go to bed. I was up 2, 3, 5, 10 times a night, no sleep. I was in a zombie state. My adrenals were maxed. My naturopath said, hey, keep an eye on that, man, and I feel good, but you're off.
And we are a psychosoma. We are a mind body. And stress, especially undue levels of negative stress, can profoundly affect physiology, and you can literally think yourself into a sickness from excess worry, lack of sleep, et cetera, et cetera. And very interestingly, in my humble opinion, the corollary is not necessarily true. Once a pathology has developed, you may have thought yourself into that, but you may not be able to think yourself out of that. Hopefully sometimes you can, and a good mental attitude is always good. But that is when medicine and medical care is required. So much of living a good, long, healthy life involves in maintaining what we've already got. And you can still be sick and get sicker. So maintaining your current level of health, I think, is a very high priority, especially in this day and age. And I think, in my opinion, obviously I went into this industry for a reason, but I think health is one of the most important assets that we have. And arguably, if you lose it, you can't do anything, even enjoying life. And the opposite is true. So I've got a few things that I want to say too, but the opposite is true, is when we are in a good state, when we are relaxed, when we are peaceful, happy, joyful, we perform better. Work doesn't feel like work. Work can be enjoyable when we are good and healthy in our minds and in our bodies. And this system does give us a way that we can literally tweak and do some inner engineering to maintain the robustness of the communication processes. And because what is a healthy body? A healthy body is a body that is free of pain and it feels good to be in. We shouldn't be accepting that as an ideal. That should be our baseline, in my opinion. So.
You mentioned, knock on wood, I made it through Corinne's diagnosis, her illness, her battle, her passing, and then grief. Knock on wood, I never got sick. And and I went out. I made sure I could have gone downhill.
You could have torpedoed in many ways. And that is a testament probably to your self-care, I would imagine, and help from others.
Help from others, my biking, I'd get on my bike and believe me, I'd get on that bike and be up in the mountains or on a straightaway road and just have my music on and just think and cry and, and just scratch my head like, what in the hell, what happened? That's the one part of life I'd understand is, you live here, you're here such a short time. And then someone that, my wife, how did she pass? And I still question that. And it's coming up to 3 years. I'm just blown away that it's going to be 3 years, coming up here. And she was someone who lived a healthy life, and so for our listeners, don't take life for granted. Don't take relationships for granted. 1 minute life can change in
every holiday season. There are folks that are not with us anymore.
But anyway, and thank you for our audience. I always talk about Corinne, and I had a Dr. Hofarth on the show the other day, and he said, it's very obvious how much you loved your wife, and he goes, so thanks for sharing that story. So, and I've had a lot of our followers who have followed Corinne and I for years too, who've just said, I'm still blown away, or I lost my husband, I lost my spouse, and it's a tough one. So anyway, so I send blessings to all of anyone that's going through something as awful as this, but also send blessings to all the people who have wonderful relationships and enjoy it, because life can change in an instant. Let's talk about the endocannabinoid system again. Sorry about that. Are there certain products? So I was going to go there. Or do you find bringing your body back to balance with a tincture is better than via a smokable vaporization?
Good question. I think that, just real quickly, 3 pillars of natural health.
Okay.
You've got to feed the organism well, good, healthy diet. You need to properly exercise and move the physiology. So exercise, so diet and exercise, and of course sleep. So you have to feed it, you have to repair it, and you have to move it. So when those three are being challenged, meaning I'm eating well, I'm getting good sleep, my diet has been pretty good, but I still am feeling a little bit imbalanced, that might be a really good time to try some of the CBD oriented products. In terms of the ways to take them, the body, there are advantages and disadvantages to each of them. If you are taking it for sleep, I would recommend using an edible. If your product has THC in it, I would recommend having a very low dose if you are a newbie and a beginner, because that's one of the ways, more so even than inhalation, the edible of THC can create situations where some people don't feel very well.
Uncomfortable.
But for things like pain or itch, even insect bites, sunburn, I think topicals can be very good. And if you do have pain, I do recommend combining an oral or an inhalation product with a topical. So using the topical plus another method. For CBD-oriented products, I think edibles are fine. There are some conditions on the THC side, such as with migraine headache, where many folks with migraine will get something called a prodrome, where the headache's not here, but it's coming. I can see bright lights, or I just get a sense that that the migraine is coming. Sometimes you get 20, 30, 40 minutes notice. That is not enough time a lot of the times to take an edible product. So an inhalation or an oral mucosal absorption can be beneficial because you get a quicker
onset.
Yes, you get a quicker onset, and the cannabinoids hit the bloodstream much faster.
Gotcha. Can I and maybe I'm misunderstanding. When you're saying edibles, are you including tinctures in there? Because I've had some.
Correct. Okay. Including liquids, which we drink.
Okay.
Anything that goes into the mouth and is taken into the stomach, I consider an edible. So yes, a tincture can be an edible. You can also put a tincture in a spray bottle, and you can use it as a topical. So tinctures are very versatile. You can even take a tincture and put it in some of your favorite cream, and then all of a sudden you have a topical.
You know what? I had a doctor the other day said, "What do you do on your face?" And I said, "Actually, you know what? I use a cannabis product on my face." And so there's some great cannabis products.
There's some good studies on some of the connective tissue cells that are involved in laying down collagen and preventing. They're not clinical studies, but showing that CBD actually helps these cells that repair our skin. If you take a credit card and you smile, frown, smile, frown, smile, frown, smile, frown, you're going to get lines in the credit card. Some of these studies show that the cells that the topicals can affect really help with the connective tissue modeling. And so I think it's a good idea. Also, good studies on CBD and acne, for example, including in humans.
Yeah, earlier when I was chuckling about the edible portion, it wasn't. I was chuckling because you have a lot of, and I'm glad that's why I was asking you. Is edible both an edible like a cookie, brownie, as well as a tincture? Because you know we have a lot of patients that have called us, senior citizens. They'll go down there and get a beautiful little brownie bite or a chocolate chip cookie, and they think, how could this thing be so powerful? And they eat it. Oh, it's delicious. Let's eat another one.
Oh, and that again is where I have, and also with CBD products, it can, in the daytime, it can make you overly sleepy. Now at night, that might be what you want, but that is certainly not what most of us want in the daytime. And I have a friend who calls them CBD zombies, people who've had too much CBD and they're just seem a little bit, too much CBD orally can make you very sleepy.
You know, and I do that. That's what I do for nighttime. Every night.
The main, go ahead.
No, go on. Sorry.
Oh, the main downside of tinctures is a lot of people don't like the taste. Now that can be worked with depending on the product. Some tinctures the liquid has alcohol in it. Some tinctures, it will have a sweeter glycerin type of a product in it. Some products will have oils like a coconut oil or an olive oil. So the taste of a product is also a very important consideration for any edible. And the other thing that a tincture can do is a lot of the times the dropper will be scored so that you can give yourself 0.5 milliliters or 0.25. So if you want to adequately measure your dose, a liquid gives you an advantage versus a brownie that's this big that has 30 milligrams of CBD and I cut it in 4. I'm not really, one side is a little bigger. So I like that aspect of tinctures. But again, the taste is not favorable for some. If you want to do it that way, you can continue to search for good tasting products. They are out there.
They're out there, you know, and I'm okay with the taste. I prefer mine in MCT oil, which is the coconut oil.
I like that.
Some medical professionals have said, hey, get your favorite yogurt, honey, brownie, and put the actual tincture on there and take it that way if it's a taste issue.
And John, the studies show that when you eat, do an edible with a high lipid, high fat meal, you get 4 to 5 times the absorption. So I really think if you want to save money on the products, introduce it to your physiology with the most optimal way that you can. And in a lipid form, I think is good. I know there are lots of folks that are talking about nanotechnology, etc. I think theoretically that can be, it works with pharmaceutical drugs, but I have not seen any specific plasma studies on humans checking blood levels, but a lot of those products are more expensive. They'll argue, but you get better absorption, and then there aren't studies for that. So A, I'd like to see studies, but B, if you're worried about affordability, you can actually do that process yourself by taking it with a high fat meal. And when we drink something or eat something and it goes into the digestive tract, it then gets transferred into the small intestine where we have digestive enzymes that do the same thing that a nanoparticle will do, is they emulsify the product. So we have natural emulsifiers, but I think that taking it consistently with a high lipid or a high fat meal is a good way to go. So.
Yeah. You know, there's so much stuff out there with, you know, like nanotechnology and what's the other one? Single molecule.
Isolates,
excuse me. You know, and you talked about whole plant and, you know, bringing everything together, whole plant with the entourage effect. You need all those pieces. Do you feel the same way about that?
Well, you do. There's no doubt about it. And CBD as an isolate is not as beneficial as CBD in a whole plant. Yeah. That doesn't mean there's no use for CBD isolates. I think they can be good additives, or even any cannabinoid isolates, like a CBG isolate can be a good additive, but you want to be adding it to a whole plant mixture with the cannabinoids and with the terpenes. One of the other areas of synergy is involved with absorption, and a lot of terpenes have been shown to enhance absorption in non-cannabis studies. Myrcene is one, Myrcene, and linalool, which comes from lavender, can in non-cannabis studies enhance absorption and delivery. But synergistically, we know for a fact that taking with an MCT oil, for example, medium chain triglyceride, like a coconut oil extract, can enhance absorption and save you money.
And can it save you? Two things. One, terpenes. So for our listeners, if you don't know that terpene, linalool and myrcene are a couple, pinene. These are like essential oils, but we're all familiar with what a terpene is. You know, when you stop and smell the roses, the scent that the rose puts off, and that's a heal. That's also healing. You know, we have essential oils nowadays where the calming with, like you said, with the linalool. But you know, when I smell roses, it brings me back to my childhood with my grandmother and my mom. You know,
and roses are wonderful for grief. The rose scent is very good emotionally for grief. We have animal studies on citrus terpenes, where you can take a bunch of rats in a cage, and you measure, you film them, and you can measure their movements. And when you add a little bit of lemon to the air, their activity levels increase. Terpenes have the ability to affect physiology at very, very low levels of concentration. So they can be phenomenal in terms of helping with health. Now, why is it that these random molecules do that? Well, you look at why does the plant make these terpenes, and it's usually to affect the physiology of an organism. Some plants will put the fragrances in the flowers to attract insects. Some will put fragrances that repel. Some of them are anti-herbivory compounds, so they make their leaves not taste very good, so insects don't want to eat them, or herbivores don't want to eat them. Tobacco, for example, the reason tobacco uses nicotine is, I don't know about your experience, but my first experience in 7th grade, and my buddy had a cigar, and he's like, let's go out back and have a cigar. And all of a sudden, what am I doing? I'm vomiting on the sidewalk. Why? Why? Because of the nicotine. The nicotine is put into the tobacco plant so that if a horse or a grazing animal comes by and grabs a taste of that, it's literally designed to make them not want to eat that again. And sure enough, even though both of my parents were bad models and smoked cigarettes, because of that experience, I wanted nothing to do with tobacco. So these plants are making molecules specifically to influence physiology. It's part of the defense mechanism of plants. They can't run away, so they have to use deterrents. And so they literally manufacture molecules that work on the physiology of other organisms.
It's funny. Yes, 7th grade. You know, I was a baseball player, and I remember chewing tobacco, and I was the same thing. I turned white. My mouth filled up with saliva, and then turned white, and then everything else came like, okay, like the horse, I won't be doing that again.
Right. Again, and now in our nervous system, we have an entire receptor system that is known as the nicotinic receptors based on nicotine. How do we know we had them? Well, a scientist said, let's study this molecule and see what it does in the body. And the nicotinic receptors came up. The ECS is the same way. People studied THC, the molecule that gets us high, and they found these receptors in this entire receptor system. So in that way, these plants can be our teachers, because for millions and millions of years, they have been interacting with the physiology of other organisms with specific goals in mind. Caffeine is another great example of that. In the flowers, the coffee will put a little caffeine in the flowers that attracts the bees. So
yeah, I loved your visualization. I like the horses. I'm a quick learner in some things and not quick on the others. The other ones are like, don't do that, and what do? You keep on human nature. Go back. So endocannabinoid system and cannabinoids. Can you balance your endocannabinoid system with just one cannabinoid, say with THC or just with CBD, or do you need the combination?
My feeling is on the THC side, there is a single molecule patented pharmaceutical medication called Marinol. Yeah. Patients tend to really dislike it. Even the high, if you talk about a marijuana high, folks will say, oh, the music was groovy, et cetera, et cetera. This single molecule literally, I've never tried it, but patients will describe it as putting them into an altered world of extreme boredom. It's non-interesting, but all of a sudden you add these other components to it and it changes the entire flavor. I think you could maybe make an argument on the CBD side that might be helpful for overall balancing across a lot of boards, but really what helps the balance is a balanced product. And part of that is bouquet, you know, the scent of the product. So it's hard in many markets, but I always recommend the ability to smell or taste your products.
Yeah, there's some studies showing that they're finding higher success with patients that have a certain ailment, and they say they'll have all the products that are there. Oh, this one smells great. Then go with that one. Go with that one.
The nose knows. I think that especially for mood-oriented and especially folks who are on the recreational side with flower, smell your flower, and these fragrances can give us an amazing amount of information. Look at wine tasters, sommeliers. They can taste the wine and not only tell you that this is a Pinot, but that it's from, you know, 2006, and they can also tell you where. So they can tell you what kind of wine it is, what year, and what soil it was grown in.
Exactly.
Literally pick the location that it was grown in, all based on these chemicals. And the French have a saying: in order to make great wine, the grapes must suffer. Hot days, cold nights, and they put out the flavonoids and terpenes and other molecules that contribute to the overall flavor and bouquet of the wine. Same is true with cannabis.
Yeah, it's my brother's in the wine business. He's down in Santa Barbara, so he's been doing that for 20-something years. And I always use the analogy because, you know, patients, consumers come to us and say, I don't want to get high. I want the medical part of the cannabis plant, not the recreational part. And so can you share the true, and I always say, well, it's like going wine tasting. You can have a sip of wine, be perfectly fine. Drink 3 bottles, you're going to feel that, and it's probably not going to be too comfortable. And same thing with cannabis, with THC. You can have small amounts, 2 milligrams, 5 milligrams, and have success. You know, you go up 100 milligrams, I think it's just way too much for the body. So can you share your thought process on the difference between when patients come to you and say, I don't want to get high, I want the medical portion of cannabis and not the recreational?
Well, I'll play both sides because it works both ways. Medicine is not easy, but if you are in pain and in a lot of pain, you know this, and your family members know this, is you're not always yourself. You're not always yourself. So the pain has created an altered state to begin with, where you're not yourself. So I think that people are afraid to become not themselves, and legitimately so. But if you're in pain, you're not yourself, or you may not be acting like yourself. We all have been there. Most of us have been there. We know that. There's a beautiful study. I believe it's the journal Pain Research called Restored Self, a Phenomenologic Study of Pain Relief in Cannabis, where basically what this study is showing on the psychological level, when I get my cannabis dose right, I say something along the lines of, I feel like myself again, or I've gotten myself back, or I've gotten my mojo back, I've got my shine back, that kind of a thing. So the alteration can alter you from not normal to normal in one case. If, on the other hand, somebody has too much THC for their given proclivity, that can make you not be yourself. I find that the main molecule for that is THC when people take it, when they take too much THC, it can be a bad experience for some folks. So when utilizing THC, I always recommend that they start with a very low dose. But another
is that called hyperemesis?
Hyperemesis syndrome. That is hyperemesis. Emesis means vomiting. Hyper means high level. Something called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. Yep. It's usually, and I've spoken with a lot of emergency department doctors about this, it's usually young men in their mid-20s and 30s that have been consuming an inordinately large, huge amount of THC in the form of vaped concentrates or concentrated edibles. And this syndrome makes you throw up all the time. And the keynote, if you're a clinician, the keynote, meaning the thing that you know that that's it, is they'll report that, yeah, I'm nauseous all the time, but when I take a hot shower, I feel better. Or if I take a hot bath, I feel better. And then I get out of the shower and the vomiting happens again. That is a keynote of cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. And the treatment for it is to eliminate the cause of the disturbance, which is in this case, the huge amounts of cannabis that are being consumed. And so a lot of the times I see this as maybe an issue of abuse as opposed to therapy gone wrong.
Have you ever, I've seen this happen with patients before where they've consumed too much and they're given a CBD vaporizer.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you're having too much of something, you're like, really, you want me to take some more?
That can be helpful. You can take the THC, but because remember that balancing is happening, right? So you can use CBD either prior to the THC ingestion or after the THC ingestion to do that. And I would also argue that if you are having a bad experience with cannabis, to take advantage of the terpene called beta-caryophyllene, which is in high amounts in lemon balm and other plants. But one particular plant that has a lot of it is black peppercorns. And I'll have patients take a black peppercorn, put it between their teeth and bite down. And it is a pretty quick regulator of that negative process. Also citrus-based terpenes, and so citrus-oriented smells and pine-oriented smells can assist. I had, and you can definitely have too much CBD, or sorry, you can definitely have too much THC, even with a CBD product that is acting as a buffer. You can still have too much, but these are things that can mitigate or reduce the risk of that. So, and again, the main areas that I teach or educate either patients or my clients is how to handle side effects from THC is really, and the short answer is use less, use a lot less. We don't do this so much anymore, but medical cannabis has become much less about inhalation. And it used to, like 15 years ago, pretty much all you could purchase at the dispensaries was flour and maybe a few tinctures and a little butter. Now we have all of these other products. So we don't really have to worry. I just tell my patients, no need for you to smoke anything. That's not how it's done anymore.
Yeah. You mentioned how much. So can you share how much or how little? I know everyone's different. So what would you share with our audience today? Bringing your body back to or I guess feeding your endocannabinoid system, bringing it back to balance.
I think the best way to feed your endocannabinoid system is with healthy lipids. So good fats in your diet are going to help your body make its own endocannabinoid molecules. But if you need more support, most folks tolerate CBD very well. So some folks will start at 10 milligrams, some folks will start at 15, anywhere from 10 to 25. I think you're safe across the board. Realize that the higher your dose gets doesn't necessarily mean that it will work better, and it could make you more sleepy. So anywhere from 10 to 25. On THC, if you are an absolute beginner, 2.5 milligrams is a good place to start, and never, as a newbie, never, ever go over 10 milligrams your first time. Wait till the next day. The biggest mistake people make is I did an edible an hour and a half ago. I'm feeling a little bit of an effect. I want more, and then redosing it. The edible products will creep up on you, and you should not be redosing within at least a 2-hour window, or you can easily have too much. If you have too much of an edible and it makes you feel not comfortable, it's not going to make you sick, it's not going to make you die, it's not going to be toxic, but you may not have a very good time. Most people will feel like, oh, I can't think about, I can't think about certain things because the thought process is interrupted, and they don't like that. With an edible, you have to wait. With an inhaled product, you only have to wait 30 minutes unless it is a concentrate, in which case I say wait an hour and a half. But with an edible, if you have too much, it's literally could be until the next day where you are coming through. And I have had patients on extreme high doses have effects lasting 24 to 36 hours. Again, no harm from a toxicology point of view, but certainly not feeling good in your brain and in your mind from too much THC.
And that's when I was chuckling earlier, because I've had that before, and it's an uncomfortable feeling, and
you can't get back. There's no way back.
And so when I share with people,
black pepper, CBD can be helpful. Pines, citruses, and I always tell patients, put one of your old favorite movies on that you've watched 15 or 20 times, so you don't have to follow the plot line exactly, and just do your best and then sleep it off.
And that's
one thing is for sure.
Yeah.
Is it will make you want to sleep at some point, and don't be afraid to just, and that's the other thing, is if you've done an edible and you find in the morning that alarm's going off and you're hitting that snooze a bunch of times, you may have had too much. We want to use the least amount possible to get that effective dose. For pain, rarely, but most of the time you don't need much more than 5 milligrams of THC, and a lot of the times 2.5 is plenty, along with some of the CBD and other whole plant-based products. And again, 10-ish on the CBD, up to 25. So those are good guidelines.
And as you mentioned earlier, it helps keep the cost down. More is not always better, and it's not covered by insurance as well. And I want to do just as a disclaimer to protect you as well as me. This is not to replace a one-on-one with your medical professional. If you'd like to have a medical professional consult, do you do those, Dr. Felice?
I will do cannabis coaching. I do not do authorization forms anymore. I've done hundreds of them. I'm no longer doing those.
Gotcha. So, but
honestly, I feel that until it is an FDA approved medication, it can put clinicians at risk. So whoever the doctors are that are writing, they're special people, because they are putting their necks out for you guys a little bit. So I think that that's a good thing.
Good. So I just wanted to share that. So the informational purpose is only here too. Question always comes up, not only about how much do I take, but when will I feel this? When will I feel my body get back to balance? And is that I know it's not a one size fits all. What works for me might be quicker than what might work for you.
Well,
can you talk about that?
I think in terms of, sleep, a lot of the times we have a sleep debt. So just because we have 1 or 2 nights of good sleep, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are caught up in your sleep. So for sleep, I think it can take a long time to catch up. For pain, it depends on the cause of the pain. Is the cause inflammatory? Are there structural changes in the joints or in the bones or the muscles? Those can take a longer period of time, but you can certainly get a quick and rapid relief. For anxiety, anxiety is caused for any number of different reasons. If you're not addressing the underlying issue, it's going to come back, but it can help for a certain period of time. I think that balance is a dynamic process, that cannabinoids, the terpenes, even some of the flavonoid molecules are part of what we put together. And it's about doing little things for yourself. I always tell patients, learn what you know. So many times we know how, like I know that my neck bugs me when I sit at this computer screen. So until that changes, you could be not really addressing the root cause. So the short answer is it can assist balance very rapidly. But true balance is always dynamic, and it is between our inner world and our outer world. The outer world is constantly changing, and the inner world is constantly changing. So this is why I think the plant is a great teacher, not in terms of some anthropomorphic, like happy birthday to Mary Jane, any kind of a thing, but that it can teach me, how is my body doing today? How did I wake up this morning? Did I have too much? How am I feeling today? And we really should be checking in with ourselves on at least a few times a day. How am I doing? Have I had enough food? Am I hydrating well? And so the plant can really teach us about what we can do to maintain that sense of balance. It's not a magic pill that's going to make everything better, but it is a kind of a synergistic thing that can hit a lot of points at one time. And for many folks, you'll notice it quickly. It's not going to take weeks and weeks for you to figure out if this is effective for you. So,
when you say true balance, I'm also the first to say cannabis is not, the golden pill, the golden ticket. And I think it, you talked about the 3 pillars. I like adding 5 pillars, and, getting outside with nature, picking up another hobby, for a lot of the elderly with brain issues. Do crossword puzzles. There's I think there is a nunnery up in the hills in Europe somewhere, and they have like a zero population of dementia and Parkinson's, because these old Catholic nuns are constantly doing all their crossword puzzles. So I'm a fan of
all kinds of intellectual games.
Picking up a musical instrument.
Playing a musical instrument is phenomenal for the nervous system. So much of the nervous system is involved. And when you play music, you're not only are producing sound, but if you're playing with others, you're listening as well. So, and again, music, we know that singing affects the endocannabinoid system. But the thing that I would like to say, just to answer your question again, is that the cannabis can teach us about the dynamic nature of this homeostatic balancing system. And it can give us some tools to monitor ourselves and help us deal with a very difficult changing outer world that happens to all of us from time to time. Everybody has good days, everybody has bad days. And noticing what makes my days good and what makes my days not so good.
And it could be like a domino effect. You're talking about sleep and anxiety, depression, and when we're losing out on sleep, we've all experienced it. You're sluggish the next day. You drink coffee just to get you wake up, or you eat, a donut or something like that. Then now your gut's off, your body's off, you're not sleeping, and it's a domino effect of your anxiety coming up, your depression coming, so sometimes you can just nail one.
One of our most important aspects of of the external environment, the environment that is outside of the body, many of us think of as inside the body, and I mean the gut flora, the healthy gut flora. And biologically speaking, from the mouth through the anus, we are a giant donut. So our food literally, technically, is out. We're a donut, big, long tube. The food is outside of us, technically. So these gut flora, which we know have dramatic effects on the gut-brain axis, immune activity, inflammation. I'm sorry about that.
Is that my mom?
we'll let that go. The gut bacteria are also positively influenced by cannabinoids. So it really does give us a tool to manage. It's a tool to manage these multiple features because being human is complex. It's a complex thing.
It is. And let's go right into receptors, CB1, CB2 receptors. And how does this work with the CB1 receptor, CB2 receptor of the brain as well as the body?
Well, that's a deep topic. One of the most important ways that the CB1 and CB2 works for pain and seizures is something called retrograde inhibition. I won't go into the elaborate details of it, but usually when I teach an audience, I ask the audience the question, what makes a car work well? And some people will say, oh, the tires, and what makes a car work. Some people will say, oh, the steering wheel. the engine, what makes, and hardly anyone ever says brakes. Hardly anyone ever mentions that brakes are necessary. Well, our nervous system, there's a famous physiologic saying that 70% of our nervous system exists to slow the other 30% down. The only thing that we know of that will slow down neurotransmission in the opposite way that it goes is the endocannabinoid system. So it is in many ways the brakes of our nervous system. So if you have a seizure disorder, that is a hyperactive event. The brakes can be put on, it can slow them down. Pain signals are unidirectional, they go one way. So retrograde transmission will go the opposite way and can help turn down the pain signal. So that's one very profound way, and it is the only neurotransmitter system in all of science that goes the opposite way. So it enables the network to have a much more robust response. We also have hyperactivity in our culture. Anxiety is a type of a hyperactivity where I can't slow my thoughts down. I can't slow my thinking down. I'm sitting in bed. I can't stop these racing thoughts. It can help alleviate the hyperactivity of the nervous system. Now that's going to have a downside for some folks. If you overdo it or you use too much of it, you can slow things down too much. We all have seen that in popular culture. Yep. So,
I was thinking making your car work better is gasoline.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Bringing in positive, the right stuff in your body.
And good fuel, good
fuel
molecules.
Yeah.
Good molecules. When you're building a house for yourself, you want to use the most highest quality ingredients you can because they're going to last longer.
Even the mortar behind you.
Even the mortar. Not all biologic molecules are created the same, and the fats that we take in are very important. So if we have a cold water fish versus a corn-fed, I won't say the name of it, fast food burger. That fast food burger is going to have a lot more arachidonic acid, which is a pro-inflammatory lipid. The omega-3s in the fish are an anti-inflammatory. So they'll feed both the fast food burger and the Pacific wild salmon are going to feed into the same physiologic pathway that helps us reduce inflammation. But one of those molecules is going to be better, the fish, the healthy one. The other one, it can actually be pro-inflammatory. So the standard American diet, we get a lot of pro-inflammatory ingredients in it. And excess sugar can also create conditions where there's free radical damage and create scenarios that are less than ideal for us.
It's funny you say that. Last weekend I had 2 back-to-back birthday parties, and I had 2 back-to-back delicious cakes too. But I felt it the next morning. I felt it in my joints. I felt, pain. I'm like, God, I never have pain.
This is what I mean about that awareness, paying attention to how things, and some things aren't crystal clear, but some of them are. Keeping the journal can be very helpful for that. I know I'm the same way. I love my sweet treats. Yeah. I notice personally with those, and especially with wheat-oriented snacks, because at my age, I'm still above averagely active, and boy, what used to be a gentle activity on the weekend can now be pain-inducing. So as we get those aches and pains, we can use those as feedback for how we're doing in general.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, Jake, I appreciate your knowledge. First off, a great educator too, on getting the message out, and for me to understand and me to follow, but I'm certain our followers also feel that way. Can you talk about your company, Cannabis Matrix Consulting, and what you do?
Yes, you can go to cannabismatrix.com or Google me at drjakefelice.com. I help individuals make good cannabis decisions through education. I help cannabis companies make good decisions based on what they should be educating their marketplace, because if you own a cannabis company or are an executive and you know your product is good, the marketplace may not have enough information to evaluate that. So we can work on marketing messaging, and then also on the production side, how to make a good cannabis product, especially utilizing synergy with cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, and other plant-based molecules. You can all visit my website at those addresses that I mentioned. And really, for me, I think that what I am about is teaching folks that this plant world, this world of plants and botanicals, has something to offer us as modern humans that is not only scientifically valid and health promoting, but also can be deeply personally rewarding to develop these types of abilities to care for ourselves and connect us with the planet.
Yeah, well said. I think educating yourself, as you mentioned, seeing if cannabis is right for you. It's not for everybody, but we've seen a
Yes.
lot of studies. There are a lot of studies coming out. It's been used as a plant, as a medicine for thousands and thousands of years. You know,
And you're not going to find a less toxic medication than cannabis. So just in terms of the toxicity, the downside of cannabis biologically compared to other especially pharmaceutical oriented products is very, very good.
you know, before our call today, I was on the phone with a patient from Texas, and we've worked with her over the years, and her breast cancer came back.
Mhm.
And so she lives in Texas, so she can use a CBD product. So she wants help with nausea and pain and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So she asked her doctors about that, and they said, "No, you live here in Texas." And I said, you should ask them to write you, not my first choice, but ask you to write you a prescription for Marinol for nausea and pain." And she goes, "I did, but they told me it doesn't work." And I said, "Then have them, then tell them write to our government and say, hey, this doesn't work. We need to try cannabis." But I think when a patient's going through something like this, let them try it, because her second option was fentanyl patch, morphine, and high doses of oxy. I think, which just will, yes, it may help, but it's going to wreck the gut. And so you're talking about, you cannot find a more natural.
And also the cannabis will help the morphine work better. It also reduces side effects of withdrawal. And if there's tolerance to the opiates, and we know this from clinical studies in humans, if tolerance to the opiates develops, cannabis can help reverse it. Also, cannabis does not potentiate opiates, meaning it doesn't make you at risk. The opiates put you at risk of your heart stopping or forgetting to breathe. But cannabis with opiates along with them does not add to that risk at all. In fact, we see across the board that medical patients who are on opiates who concomitantly use cannabis reduce their opiate use, and that saves lives. We are getting to the point where we can really say that now.
Good. And that's why I think a medical professional should be involved, especially when opiates are involved. Their drug-to-drug interaction.
Absolutely. We don't have good options for long-term pain. The opiate class, we all know about. The NSAIDs, ibuprofen, Aleve, also have huge problems that are not as popularly talked about. Corticosteroids have huge problems that all clinicians worth their salt are aware of. But the long-term options for pain on the medical side are bleak. And yet so many of us have chronic debilitating pain issues.
Oh boy. I mean,
or even just weekend warrior stuff where it's just overdoing it and feeling sore and stiff the next day.
It's tough because pain is such a major topic here globally, but here in the US, I work with a lot of pain organizations, that are treated like criminals because they take, you know, they'll get a pharmaceutical thing of 30 pills, and they need one day they may need two, and when they go in to refill it, now they're on the list saying, oh, you're abusing it. No, I'm in pain. And so you know,
a new person, and this is I believe a 2016 study, who is put on opiates for 1 week has something like a 30% chance that a year later they're still going to be using them. So when you put patients on opiates, they stay on opiates. It's a good business model. It's not a good medical model for long term, but we have an ethical obligation to treat pain. We do the best we can. The problem is abuse is a medical issue. It is not necessarily a moral failing, and it is just a certain percentage of people get caught up on this. And cannabis is not a major pain reliever. It's more of a mild pain reliever, but it works so well with the opiates. It works well with the NSAIDs. Decreased gastric irritation from NSAIDs from inhaled cannabis, not even a topical product. So maybe these are things we could talk about in a future visit, John.
Yeah, please.
Lots of good reasons to use cannabis for various reasons. So
we'll end on that. Dr. Jake Felice, I thank you very much for the education about the endocannabinoid system. We all have an endocannabinoid system, so bring your body back to homeostasis. If you don't know what it is, do some research. Ask your doctor. If your doctor is not familiar about the endocannabinoid system, this might be a great conversation that you can take some little tidbits and bring it back to him or her and say, "Here, did you know about this system that's in our body?" And if they don't, direct them to us here at United Patient Group. Direct them to Dr. Jake Felice. Because again, it's just like the ripple effect, throwing the pebble in the pond and the ripples go out of education. And I'm a big fan of getting this information out. It's not for everybody. I totally understand that. It doesn't work for everybody. But I've seen it work, and I've seen it not work too. But anyway, Jake Felice, I thank you so much, as always. Always a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, everybody.
And again, this is John Malanka with the United Patients Group. Be informed and be well, and we'll see you soon as well. Bye-bye. Hey everybody, John Malanka with United Patients Group. Be informed and be well. This segment is brought to you by Aspen Green. Aspen Green is just a handful of USDA, that's right, USDA certified organic hemp and CBD brands. And all of its hemp is grown from the perfect topography and climate found in Colorado. It is a family-owned business and is deeply committed to the science of providing only the purest hemp and CBD products for the best results and most beneficial experience. Its mission is to bring the therapeutic value of pure, organic hemp and CBD to people who seek supplemental relief through the use of healthy, natural products. Aspen Green is free from toxins and runs up to 8 different lab tests from bona fide third-party labs throughout its product line. It holds in high regard 3 foundational principles that guide every aspect of their business, actions, and interactions with their customers, partners, as well as their community. These are quality, integrity, and transparency. These will always remain at the hearts of their efforts to bring their beneficial products to consumers. Check out why purity matters at aspengreen.com and follow them on social channels at Aspen Green CBD. Use promo code UPGCBD for 20% off. Again, UPGCBD for 20% off at aspengreen.com.